longer are limited by the time of the IPO. Every Kenyan can now buy and sell shares daily during market hours to make owning the Kenya pipeline and making it their own asset. Your Excellency, one of our key strategic ambitions of our market is to move our market from a frontier market to an emerging market. Achieving this will put us in the ranks of countries like South Africa and significant both the NSC and indeed our country in the global investment community. As I told you, Your Excellency, in the holding room, global investors look at us and say, our markets are too small and too fragmented. But this move we are making today will change that narrative forever. Central to this upgrade is the expansion of listing opportunities and the deepening of investment options in our country. Your Excellency, this listing is significant to me personally, as it marks the last event that I preside as chairman, that I attend as a chairman of the NSC. And I really appreciate the fact that in history, I don't think we've had so many presidential visits. You came here, you made promises, and I'm glad that I am not leaving before some of those promises have been kept. So, Your Excellency, during my tenure as a chairman, we have achieved significant progress. We have accelerated the market reforms aimed at strengthening the foundations of our capital markets and positioning the NSC as more inclusive, efficient, and globally competitive marketplace. You challenged us. You said this was an elitist club for a few capitalists. But I think today we are actually ensuring that it is a marketplace for all Kenyans and indeed for all East Africans. So together with our regulators and stakeholders, we have worked to remove long-standing barriers to entry, modernized our market infrastructure, streamlined listing requirements, strengthened investor protection frameworks, and progressively aligned our regulatory environment with global best practice. I'm sure even the CEO, the chairman of ASEA, who is here, the CEO of Rwanda Stock Exchange, can attest to the fact that we are head and shoulders above other capital markets in the continent. Your Excellency, to provide more perspective, one of the key reforms we undertook is to establish a dedicated market segment for small and medium-sized enterprises. Through our SME investment market segment, SMEs in Kenya now have a clear and structured pathway to both equity and debt capital at the NSC. Your Excellency, we worked together with Safaricom on the launch of the ZD program, and we have given you a brief about the progress on that. And Your Excellency, I believe that the ZD program and the door opening to the Mamambogas and borders is perhaps the most significant achievement that this market has made. As part of our broader effort, Your Excellency, we've also reduced trading values to about a minimum of 100 shillings. So a person in the streets with 100 shillings, instead of putting that money on a gaming platform, can actually buy and sell shares. Your Excellency, we've also dealt with key infrastructure and access barriers, and we've turned our attention to the awareness and investor creation. Partnering with local media houses, we've taken our staff outside the comfort zone of talking in English, and they now have to go to Kameme FM, Chamge FM, Ramogi FM, and talk in their mother tongue about matters capital. It's not an easy task, Your Excellency. I've been on it myself, and to try and find a word like derivative in Kalenjin is not very easy. Through these platforms, Your Excellency, our staff step out of their comfort zones and are now quite well versed at educating the public. This campaign will continue throughout this year, ensuring that no Kenyan is left behind. Your Excellency, we've also launched an innovation hub to tell people how they can access and accelerate growth and access capital through the markets. We've also have a program called the NSC Empower Her program, targeted at women entrepreneurs who can come to the market, get capacity built, and also find ways to access capital. Your Excellency, when we were recruiting a CEO, we went outside the industry, and we knew we would face a challenge. But I think I've been vindicated because we have a lot of out-of-the-box thinking. We are challenging conventional norms. We are now focusing our attention on agriculture, on SACCOs and chamas, to see how we can better support them and infuse better governance. Because good governance actually creates resilient platforms for wealth creation. Looking ahead, Your Excellency, I'm confident that even as I leave the NSC, our CEO and the board are capable of ensuring the implementation of our strategic plan. Finally, Your Excellency, as a pet project, I'm also leading the charge on the art scene. We have a big art auction on May the 14th, and I would like the owners of capital, the high net worth individuals, to start to appreciate art and come forward. I've had a discussion last week with Paul Russo, chairman of KBA, and we want to see if we can get art as a recognized asset class by the Central Bank of Kenya. Then that way, all boats rise, and artists will be able to get their due reward. Your Excellency, we are not just focusing on attracting new investors, but also in building long-lasting investor confidence and transforming the narrative on capital formation in our continent. Your Excellency, listing of Kenya Pipeline is a bold move by your government, and I'm sure that the public will reward this move by ensuring these shares have traction. History has shown that every global financial hub, from London to New York, from Tokyo to Paris, has been founded on the back of dynamic capital markets, and we are no exception. It is therefore our respectful appeal to you, sir, that we do not stop here, that this becomes just the beginning of the listing of many more state-owned assets. In conclusion, Your Excellency, allow me to highlight the remarkable progress we continue to witness in East Africa, and the fact that we have Rwanda and Uganda in the House today, and they have put significant resources in this IPO. I therefore welcome our brothers and sisters from the region to look at our markets as a way of diversifying their own wealth portfolios. I leave a final message as a chairman, especially to our country, to the political class. As a nation, we must safeguard the credibility of our markets. The progress we have made should not be taken for granted. It has taken many years of discipline, sound policy, and trust building. The political class should not politicize this market. Analysis is correct, it is right to analyze, and it is right to share opinion. But it should not be done in a way that compromises investor confidence. We must decouple politics from our markets. Kenya's capital markets have the potential to unlock immense value to our citizens, attract regional and global investment, and position Nairobi as a financial hub for both East Africa. So sometimes we wonder, when we see some political narratives and the settling of political scores in our markets, and ask ourselves, already this IPO is demonstrating leadership of Nairobi and leadership of Kenya in matters capital market. And I really wish that we could decouple politics from the market. Your Excellency, as we mark this important milestone, we recognize something equally important. You made a promise, and you have kept your promise. And as I sign out, let me also appreciate my own family. They're here today with me, because it's my last day. My wife, Rosemary, and my children, because they've allowed me to spend long hours away from our businesses, away from my family, but to do things that will impact the country and hopefully serve other generations. Your Excellency, thank you. And I really, greatly, deeply, and truly appreciate the confidence that you've shown in us. And thank you for messing up my retirement plans and taking me to lead the pride of Africa. But we shall do so with zest and with gusto. Thank you, sir.
A bigger clap for him as his exit speech. Thank you, sir. Your Excellency, with your permission, allow me to now usher in Ms. Faith Boynet, Chairperson, Kenya Pipeline Company, to make some very brief remarks before we progress with the rest of the program. We can give our warm clap as she's coming. Welcome.
Your Excellency, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya, and the Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces. Allow me, sir, to stand on the established protocol and make my very few remarks. On behalf of the Board of Directors of KPC, I proudly stand before you at a moment of great significance to mark the formal legal and symbolic transformation of Kenya Pipeline into a public limited company. Transformation is not a destination. It is a journey. And KPC's journey to this podium began long before the IPO was launched. When the government made the strategic decision to privatize KPC, the board's responsibility was clear: to ensure that this transformation was grounded in strength. We asked ourselves a fundamental question: is KPC ready to meet the scrutiny, the discipline, and the expectations of the public ownership? The answer we determined was yes, because KPC has spent decades building the foundations that matter. KPC has a solid track record of consistent profitability, including a pre-tax profit of Kenya shillings 13 billion and over 139 billion in assets as at June 30th, 2025. It has a history of dividend payments to its sole shareholder, the government, which I think in the past 5 years is cumulative 24 billion. So to our shareholders, clearly this is a profitable entity, and you made the right decision to invest in this IPO, which now extends to every shareholder who has joined this company. KPC is a company in its prime that has chosen to open its doors wider. What KPC shareholders should expect from this new entity? Your Excellency and distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the letters PLC that now follow KPC's name are not decorative. They represent a fundamental shift in how this company will be governed. It will be held accountable and how it will grow. Firstly, a listed entity, KPC operates under the full regulatory framework of the Capital Markets Authority. We are subject to audited disclosure requirements, continuous reporting obligations, and the oversight of an independent board accountable to all shareholders, not just the government. Secondly, the board I'm privileged to lead is acutely aware of its expanded responsibilities. We are no longer stewards of a state corporation. We now hold fiduciary duty to every individual and institution that made an investment in this company. The trust is sacred, and we will honor it through rigorous oversight, discipline, capital allocation, and unwavering commitment to ethical conduct. Thirdly, as a public limited company, KPC gains structured access to domestic and international capital markets. This means we can finance our ambitious Kenya shillings 94 billion 2025-2030 strategic plan without exerting pressure on the taxpayer. We can expand into the new revenue streams from LPG, storage, fiber optic infrastructure along our pipeline corridor, and regional expansion into Rwanda and beyond, while maintaining the discipline of public markets required. Your Excellency, let me now speak directly to our new shareholders. Some of you are institutional investors, bringing decades of experience and rigorous analysis to your decision to invest in KPC. We value your confidence and look forward to productive engagement. Some of you are first-time investors, Kenyans who opened CDS accounts specifically for this IPO, who applied through their phones and computers in Kenya's first fully electronic offering. You represent the democratization of wealth that this government has championed. You are the reason this transformation matters. And to our brothers and sisters across the East Africa who took up a stake in KPC, welcome home. The pipeline that serves your economies is now partly yours. This is a regional integration in its most tangible form. To all of you, I say you are no longer purchasers of petroleum products, but you are proprietors of the pipeline. Ladies and gentlemen, transformations of this magnitude are never the work of one institution or one individual. They require an ecosystem. First, I wish to extend the board's profound gratitude to His Excellency the President for championing the vision of unlocking value in KPC for the benefit of Kenyans and the citizens of the East African community. Your leadership, sir, has turned policy into reality. The board of KPC PLC also expresses its sincere gratitude to the National Treasury, led by the Cabinet Secretary, and the Privatization Authority for executing a transparent, inclusive, and competitive process under the new Privatization Act 2025. We also express our gratitude to the Capital Markets Authority for ensuring that every step of this journey met the highest regulatory standards. The board also commends the Transition Advisory Team led by the transaction advisor Faida Investment Bank, whose technical expertise structured a transaction that was oversubscribed by 105.7%. I wish to state that Faida Investment Bank is a Kenyan bank owned by the Kenyan people. We also thank the oil marketing companies and the industry partners who participated in the IPO and have worked alongside KPC for decades to keep this nation moving. Finally, the board expresses its sincere appreciation to the management and staff of KPC. It is because of your professionalism and dedication and duty of care that KPC stands head and shoulders above its peers in the country and the region. As employee shareholders, you even have a greater reason to recommit yourselves to serve the organization that you so much cherish. Your Excellency, in conclusion, a wise person once said that the best way to predict the future is to create it. Today, we have created a new future for Kenya Pipeline Company, but the work does not end here. The true measure of this transformation will not be the fanfare of this ceremony, but the performance we deliver in the years ahead. The board is committed to protecting and growing shareholder value through discipline, execution, and upholding of the highest standards of governance, transparency, and safety. We pledge to continue supporting KPC's management to execute the strategic plan and ensure that this company remains a source of national pride and regional strength. To our new stakeholders, this is your company. We pledge to steer it with integrity and transparency and with unwavering focus on delivering the value. Before I take my seat, Your Excellency, sir, with utmost humility, I would request the team of Kenya Pipeline, led by the Board of Directors, just to be upstanding so that we can give them a round of applause. Your Excellency, this is the team that helped to midwife the birth of this great baby. Asanteni sana. Thank you, sir.
Another round of applause for her. Thank you so much. Dialogue is often a very effective way of getting a message across. And Your Excellency, with your permission, allow us now to progress to a panel discussion, which is going to be moderated by the CEO, Frank Mwiti, who is going to be the moderator for this. And part of the panel, I'll invite DG Kibet, who is the Director General, Public Investment and Portfolio Management, and Rina Hicks, who is Director, FIDA Investment Bank. So I'll request that we have the chairs kindly brought so that we can now progress to the panel discussion. Also, as a reminder, Frank, as the moderator, we have a roving mic, so should you need any interventions from the floor, you're welcome to engage maybe any stakeholders that may have an intervention that you'd want to pick from the floor. So welcome. As a moderator, you may progress.
Very quick panel. I'm not going to hazard to request the President to join us because I did last time and he agreed. So this time I'm not going to do that on account that I might be pushing it. However, if the Excellency would love to join the panel, we would love to have That's 2 times in a row. Thank you, Your Excellency. I can see why you are afraid of the capital markets for sure. So we are really grateful for that. Your Excellency, through the bottom-up economic to look forward, to look inward, and to mobilize our domestic resources and fundamentally change how we build Kenya. And today, as our chairman said, the capital markets are delivering on that exact mandate. And for too long, the story of the African infrastructure has been written in the heavy ink of sovereign debt. Today, we are writing that playbook in the language of shared equity, democratizing wealth, and revitalize the capital markets anchored by the NSC. And we know that the KPC IPO is not the finishing line. We are just getting started. So to unpack exactly how we scale this expansion, this democratization of wealth, we are absolutely happy that His Excellency, Madam Rina and DG Kibet are here with us. So let me start with you, Your Excellency. Your administration's foundation is the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, which is clearly a very bold promise to empower the everyday Kenyan. Now, you've taken what some people have stamped as the nation crown jewel, i.e. KPC, and deliberately transferred its ownership to the public. Now, Your Excellency, how does this very historic IPO serve as the ultimate fulfillment of your social contract with the Kenyan people, ensuring that Wanjiko, Atieno, Jerotich are no longer just a spectator of the economy, but a direct owner of the nation's wealth?
Thank you very much, Muti. This morning is particularly very significant to me because 3 years ago, on my first visit to the Securities Exchange, I did make 2 commitments and made 1 request. I did make a commitment that we are going to bring ordinary people, the Kenyans in their entirety, into this equation of the stock exchange. I remember making a statement then that I have been persuading the people who are stealing cattle, you know, the stock theft people. And I was telling them there is a world of a difference between stock theft and stock exchange. And I was telling them, you must stop this stock theft and instead go to the stock exchange and buy and sell. That's number one. Number two, I remember when I came here, I said, there is great value and there is a lot of resources that we can mobilize from the Securities Exchange so that we begin the journey to wean ourselves out of heavy taxation and heavy borrowing. And I requested at that point that the stock exchange should consider mechanisms that would help bring ordinary Kenyans into the stock exchange. Today is a fulfillment of all the three. Number one, my commitment that I would bring government assets to democratize ownership of government assets to be owned by more Kenyans. And I did make a specific commitment that one of the companies that we are considering to bring to the Securities Exchange was Kenya Pipeline. Today, Kenya Pipeline is here. The commitment I also made that we are going to democratize that space. If you look at the number of ordinary Kenyans that are bought into the IPO, it speaks directly to the fact that more and more Kenyans are coming to the exchange. And thirdly, the ZD platform, which now a Kenyan anywhere from the comfort of their phone, they don't need to have a CDS account, they don't need to do all the things that were required of them to do. They don't have the denominations has come down. And you just briefed me this morning that because of the ZD platform, 61% of trading today by volume in this exchange is by Kenyans who are buying 1,000, 2,000, the ordinary Kenyans. That is phenomenal. And we have just started. This is a platform that is hardly 3 weeks old. Yes, correct. About 3 weeks old. And you can already see that 61% of trading has now been taken over by ordinary Kenyans. And this is the journey we want to make. Let me say one more fundamental thing why this is very significant to me and to the government of Kenya and to the people of Kenya. We've engaged in IPO with KCB, with Safaricom, but what is different today with this IPO is that the resources we are raising from this divestiture is directly going to generate more public assets. The money that we are going to raise today here will not go to paying debts. It will not go to paying salaries. It will go to creating infrastructure. And that is why, even as we pushed for the delisting and the divestiture of Kenya Pipeline, and as I look forward to more divestiture of public assets, that divestiture is going to specifically to go to a dedicated infrastructure fund that will help us create more infrastructure that can be divested in the future. One, as I said yesterday, one of the first beneficiary of this divestiture is going to be the building of the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. And we will shortly be telling the public where this money is going to be invested. And I promise you, it's going to be in public infrastructure that is going to support the growth of our country. This is different from what has happened before. We have sold public assets, paid debts, paid salaries, and we cannot account for where those public assets are. We are making a deliberate, significant shift that we are going to invest in assets that Kenyans can see. We're going to build new infrastructure assets that will support the growth of our economy. That, to me, is as significant as it can get.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I think that's very clear, and the beauty is every time you are at the exchange, you make promises, you keep them. So we are very happy about that. Allow me to turn to the lady, Madam Rina. Rina, this is the first major state-backed IPO since the historic Safaricom IPO more than 17 years ago. And you've been at the forefront of this given your role as the transaction advisor through Faida Investment Bank. Given how much the financial landscape has evolved since 2008 when we saw Safaricom, what would you share with the audience as the shifts that have actually taken place that must also continue to take place to ensure that the NSC reclaims its position as the primary wealth builder for the everyday Kenyan, as far as IPOs are concerned?
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, and Frank, for that question. There's three main shifts, I think. The first shift that we've got to make more consistently is financial literacy, something I'm very passionate about. I think the more that people understand what shares are, how I can benefit through investing, and what an investment really looks like. Betting is not an investment. A CDS account for shares is different from a CDS account for bonds. The more that we consistently educate in every platform possible, consistently, not just when we have an event like an IPO or an event like a rights issue, but throughout consistently in schools, in colleges, I think we will see a lot more participation. The second shift that we made was radically changing access and ease of access. It will increase. I think one of the things that we recognized initially is that a lot of people in this ecosystem still use manual account opening processes. But that changed as the IPO continued, and we then began to see a lot more access through mobile. And of course with ZD, then that completely shifted everything. And of course with the eIPO system, midway through, accepting to open CDS accounts through the IPO system made a lot easier. So radically changing ease of access is the second thing. I think finally is building trust. And we build trust by communicating, by disclosure, by transparency, and consistently just sharing how we are performing as companies. And sharing in a manner that is easy. And on platforms where Kenyans are and East Africans are. People are on TikTok, they're on X. And some of the things that we also experienced during this IPO, having forums on X spaces, help people be able to interact with this company and to know exactly what's happening and to get a perspective that they can understand. And so those are the three shifts, I think. Yeah.
Thank you, Rina. Clearly, we're in a whole different world, and it's also true to say this IPO is the first 100% e-IPO. So that has gone to also vindicate the innovations and the adoption of new technology that we've all had to do to match up with other global players. Allow me to turn to my brother, DG Kibet. Lawrence, allow me to call you Lawrence. today proves that privatization isn't about losing states' control of public assets. It's about transferring wealth directly into the hands of Kenyans. And as His Excellency has clearly mentioned, there is intention to continue to do this. So from where you sit, given your mandate within National Treasury, how aggressively, and I use the word aggressive intentionally, how aggressively is the Treasury going to be in unleashing the rest of our state-owned enterprises onto the NSC to continue this momentum?
Yeah, thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you, Frank. I'm not going to get into the trap that Frank is trying to lay. So let me put it this way. I think from our perspective as the National Treasury, from an economic standpoint, our position in terms of delivering the better agenda from a capital markets perspective is centered on three issues. One is the issue of stability, economic stability. Number two is fairness. And number three is creating opportunities in an equitable manner. That is so profound in the sense that if you remember when His Excellency was here the first time, he gave marching orders that, and he didn't use very kind words for some of us, that, you know, you're called Mandarins, and he thought Mandarins are clever people. But why are these people beaten, you know, by betting companies, for example, that, you know, many of the border people, many of the youth will be more knowledgeable on issues betting, but not the stock exchange. So the other issue is, of course, you also needed to sort out market distortions, for example. Many people are losing money in schemes like housing schemes. We've seen quite some money being lost in that front. So what are we doing to be able to address those kind of challenges? And for us, the issue is to say it's not just about privatization. So privatization is just one of those reform measures that we are putting in, but we have many other avenues of what we've put across. More recently, in November, His Excellency the President signed into law what you call the government-owned enterprise law, which is one of the most decisive legal instrument that has been put in when you talk about reforming state-owned enterprises. So even before we privatize, there will be a number of these companies will then be able to stand in a platform from a governance perspective, from a structural perspective that is market-facing. They'll be able to come to the market and be able to issue a number of instruments even without privatization. So with that, we've been able to undertake a number of reforms in that space. The sugar sector is one of them, where all the state-owned enterprises have now been brought back to life through a leasing model, which is not necessarily privatization, but a reform measure which has been able to safeguard 600,000 jobs directly in terms of farmers, the jobs for employees working directly there, and livelihoods that depend on that industry. We're replicating that in other sectors, like we're now doing it on the textile industry. And that's why it's not, it wasn't a shocker to us that, you know, when the Switzerland-based organization, IMD, the International Institute of Management Development, ranked Kenya as #1. And when you look at that yearbook, it's not about plans, it's not about strategies, it's not about intents, it's about measurable outcomes that have been delivered. And Kenya was #1, making a debut for the first time. So that speaks to the kind of reform measures that Kenya has been able to undertake over time. And we will be able to see that, and we will be able to create more opportunities in different mechanisms. Thank you.
Thank you, DG. Your Excellency, before you close the panel for us, with your permission, allow me to throw a question to CS Wandanyi, given that KPC sits in his docket from an energy perspective. CS Wandanyi, one of the most consequential things of what's happening in Middle East is the impact on the oil and gas supply chain. Maybe you can share with us what's your own view on what this means for Kenya, and more importantly, I think for the larger, potentially the larger East African region, as far as matters energy are concerned, and what's your ministry doing to secure our energy access, given what's happening in the larger Middle East economy, in Middle East region?
Okay, thank you very much. Clearly, the situation remains fluid, and it's evolving very, very fast. For instance, Thailand and China, about 2 days ago, actually stopped oil exports. Bahrain and Kuwait have actually also, their national oil companies have actually also declared force majeure in terms of their contractual obligations. However, with the continued guidance of His Excellency the President, we continue to engage very, very closely with our government suppliers. That is the Saudi Aramco, ADNOC, and ENOC, in terms of contingency planning. And for that reason, there is really no cause for alarm. In the short to medium term, we have got security of supply, and we continue to monitor the situation very, very closely. As a matter of fact, from here, I'm going to a meeting with the oil marketing companies to continue this process of review and close monitoring. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, CS. I think we are well aligned. Allow me, Your Excellency, to come back to you to close the panel for us in the interest of time. And I would request you to share with us, Your Excellency, first of all, your views again with regard to the use of proceeds to develop the Kenyan infrastructure, especially given yesterday under your leadership, you hosted leaders yesterday at State House when you were setting the National Infrastructure Fund bill into law. And we know some of the proceeds from this IPO will go to support the National Infrastructure Fund. And also we would love to hear from you what sort of request you would make of the capital markets to support the national infrastructure agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it is correct, just to buttress what Lawrence was saying, that in restructuring our economy, we are not only looking at what we can do with privatization. We are looking at the whole exercise of making government efficient. And the reform process is underway. He has mentioned 3 spaces. The sugar sector was in chaos. You know, we were spending public money to pay farmers, sugarcane farmers. We were spending public money to pay workers of sugarcane companies. A completely ridiculous thing to do. Yet, it was what we are doing. We spent 5 billion shillings to give money to sugarcane companies. Because of the reform we have done in that sector, very difficult. In fact, many Kenyans remember me in Kakamega telling somebody, mambo ni matatu. And it was because the situation was so unreasonable, you know, that you couldn't even understand what was going on. What is the situation today? The situation today is that we no longer pay sugarcane farmers. They are paid by the factories. We no longer pay workers of sugarcane companies. The sugarcane companies pay. Farmers are paid every 7 days. It used to take 6 months to 1 year. The even better news is that those companies that have never paid taxes, today we are raising 1.5 billion from sugar companies into the tax kitty. So we have moved from paying, using public resources to pay, to getting public taxes into our kitty. Simple transformation. We're doing the same with Rivertex. And yesterday, we had a bigger conversation on KCC. We have spent 7 billion shillings on KCC in the last 3 years. And I have made the decision that it's not going to happen again. We're going to reform Kenya Cooperative Creameries. We're going to make farmers own the factories, cooperatives to own the factories, and we are going to carry out the same transformation in that space. And it is the reason why you see the changes in our economy that are there. It is not by accident that our exchange rate is stable. It is not by accident that inflation is low. It is not by accident that we have a bigger kitty of foreign exchange reserves. It is deliberate actions that we have done. And it is the reason why, even as we divest, and you have asked Kibet a question as to what is the horizon, what's the runway? I want to tell you, we will be back. And it's going to be soon. I don't know when to say that soon is. And it is because we have a lot of value locked up in mature public assets. Take, for example, Kenya Pipeline. Faith, the chair here, said over the last 5 years, they've given us 24 billion, which is correct. On average, the mathematicians here, 25 billion in 5 years is on average about 5 billion a year, right? So this company, worth so much money, is giving us only 5 billion shillings a year. Look at the value we have unlocked. 65% of the company, we now have 100 billion. This 100 billion, if we were to wait for Kenya Pipeline to give us dividends, how long would it take for us to give us 100 billion? 20 years. But with this 100 billion which we have today, we will build the airport, we will generate another maybe 1,000, 2,000 megawatts of energy, we will build about 12 dams, and we will build many kilometers of roads across Kenya. If you count what that would amount in 20 years, it would be 100 times the value we would get from dividends. So there is a lot of value locked up in some of these companies, and we have to use innovative ways of how to unlock this value. I remember we were here on the Lindsay product that helped us to build Talanta. We took a portion of the sports fund. And I saw some small argument by some people there. Oh, you know, this government, they have pledged sports fund money for 15 years to build Talanta Stadium. Yes, we have. That's correct. But the question I asked them, the same sports fund has been there for 20 years. What has it achieved in 20 years? Something that we can see. Nothing. At least for the next 15 years, we will have Talanta Center, Talanta Stadium. It is a signature project. It is a project that next year will give us the opportunity to host AFCON. It's going to make money going into the future. In the past, that sports fund was used to build Cabro here, a gate there, I don't know, something there, and most of it was actually misappropriated. At least we now have the discipline to pay for Talanta. This is the kind of thinking, this is the kind of innovation that our country so seriously desires. And therefore, as I sit here this morning, I am very proud of the achievements we have achieved together. I am very happy that we have pushed this securities exchange. The numbers here are 3 times, okay, maybe 2.5 times what the numbers were 3 years ago. True or not true? So that's the kind of thing that changes the country. What is transformation? Transformation doesn't happen. It is made to happen. This lady just said the way to predict the future is to create it. We must create the future ourselves with our own innovation, with our own creativity, with our own ideas. And that's why I sit here this morning very confident about the future of Kenya. If we move at the pace at which we are moving, we will change this country in our lifetime. The numbers speak for themselves. And therefore, the runway going into the future, we will continue to reform our space. Apart from what we are doing in all the other areas, I signed the government-owned enterprises law that now sets the standard for commercial government-owned entities like Kenya Ports Authority, like Kenya Airways, Kenya Airports Authority, like KenGen, and all the others, sets the benchmark for them. Going forward, boards of directors will be appointed in a competitive manner. People who have served as politicians like myself, they have to have a cool-off period before they can come there. What we've done in the past is, somebody fails in the election, the next day we nominate them to be a board member in Kenya Pipeline. They arrive there, the first thing they're looking for is, I've come from an election. Where do I find some money? Where is the contract? Where is the... And we mess up the whole space. That is going to be a thing of the past. And I am saying so with a lot of respect to politicians like myself, right? Me being one of them. We have to seriously consider how to move the country forward. It is the reason why I signed the conflict of interest bill, to make sure that those of us who have political power or influence do not interfere with the prudent management of the affairs of our country. These are steps that, and by the way, I had a lot of difficulty persuading members of parliament to pass the conflict of interest bill, But finally, we had a candid conversation, and we said, yes, there are sacrifices we need to make to get the country moving. So thank you very much. I don't want to give you a long lecture. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I think this is the sort of lectures we like. So thank you. What we've taken there is KPC is not the climax. It's just that we are in the beginning of a robust pipeline of opportunities. The best way to build the future, to predict the future, is to build it yourself. Key takeaway for us there. Thank you, Your Excellency, for accepting to be in the panel and for the very authentic and insightful discussion that you've shared with us. Thank you, DG Kibet, for sharing with us the three things that are driving your operations at the National Treasury. And thank you, Rina, also for sharing with us, incidentally, also three things on the insights as far as the IPO went. Please, ladies and gentlemen, join me in thanking His Excellency and the panelists for this. Thank you.
Another warm clap, tafadhali. I know it's getting cold, but keep your body fluids flowing with the clap. We may take our seats kindly. We'll soon progress to the bell ringing, which is the cherry on the cake, the highlights, which is the highlight of our day today. But Your Excellency, allow me to invite the Cabinet Secretary for Treasury, Honorable John Badi, to make some very brief remarks, and also invite His Excellency the President for any closing remarks that he may have. Tumpigie makofi tafadhali. CS Mbadi, karibu.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya and the Commander-in-Chief of the Kenya Defense Forces, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, and all protocols observed. Allow me first to recognize my colleague who has been leading the line ministry of Kenya Pipeline Company before the government-owned enterprises law came into effect. The Honorable James Opio Wandai is in the house. You could just rise. We clap for him. Thank you very much. Your Excellency, it is truly an honor to stand before you at this memorable event to usher in the KPC as a listed company in the Nairobi Securities Exchange. This is coming 18 years after the last government of Kenya listing in the Nairobi Securities Exchange way back in 2008, and indeed marks a critical moment in our nation's economic journey. The finalization of the KPC IPO is a significant milestone that transcends a single transaction or just being a key statistic at the Nairobi Securities Exchange. It is a clear demonstration of the government's commitment in setting our country's sustainable economic foundation and ensuring that we have a nation that stands on stability, fairness, and offering equal opportunities to its people. Your Excellency, our economic policies are not about just managing the present, but focused on building the future, and our delivery guardrails built around fiscal discipline, sound planning, and broad participation. I must admit that since you appointed me to this position of the Cabinet Secretary to the National Treasury, the KPC IPO has been one challenging assignment that kept me on my toes since my team and I had to get it right the first time. We did not want to disappoint you, Your Excellency, and disappoint the people of Kenya. And I'm happy today we are witnessing that success. So when I first announced the KPC IPO, I did promise the country that the process shall be undertaken under a strict framework encompassing accountability, equity, value for money, and transparency. Remember, Your Excellency, that at that time the naysayers actually said that there is some shadowy investor somewhere placed strategically to take over KPC. Today, I want them to confirm whether there is such shadowy investor somewhere taking up KPC. The architecture of KPC will be still 35% GOK, about 20% by Uganda government. We have our institutional investors investing in it, received from your office and the entire cabinet on this. Let me reassure our investors and Kenyans that as disclosed in the IPO's prospectus, the proceeds from the IPO shall be deployed into the National Infrastructure Fund, and you again re-emphasized this yesterday and even today. This is a vehicle we have purposed as a premier economic engine to scale up and accelerate development of catalytic national infrastructure, including national highway and railway networks, air and seaports, electricity generation, transmission and distribution, irrigation and agribusiness infrastructure. The deployment of the proceeds of the National Infrastructure Fund is well aligned with the Kenya's fiscal realities and long-term development objectives, focused on sustainable financing and safeguarding national assets for future generations. I am particularly impressed on some of the key milestones that have been gained from this IPO. One, it has been the first e-IPO, meaning all applications were submitted electronically, hence a truly paperless IPO. Number two, the IPO attracted over 70,000 ordinary Kenyans, meeting the IPO's key policy objective of democratizing public assets by broadening the shareholder base. Number three, the investment by the government of Uganda, and I'm happy that the government of Uganda is fully represented here, led by the PS in charge of energy, Madam Irene. Kindly rise up. Thank you very much, my sister. That this investment by the government of Uganda is considered very strategic in making KPC a truly regional corporate. And also, the government of Rwanda has also invested, through their pension scheme, has invested in KPC. This is the first government-led IPO being undertaken through a structured legal framework, that is the Privatization Act, which you assented to in 2025, with cabinet and parliamentary oversight. public participation and compliance with the capital market sector and competition regulations, heightening the transparency and oversight framework in divestiture of public holdings. All IPOs carried out by GOK, or Government of Kenya, in the past were undertaken through policy framework, and this is the first time it is being undertaken through a robust legal framework with transparency. We strongly root for the capital markets as the most strategic tool that supports economic growth through the provision of capital, encouraging investments, and improving market system. It is one of the most powerful mechanisms we have for mobilizing savings, directing investment, and generating wealth. I am impressed with the recent development in this market following the launch of ZD by Safaricom PLC, which has given ordinary Kenyan success to direct tech in national progress. Over 36,000 Kenyans participated in this IPO through the ZD app, and it's worth noting that the app was just launched a week to the close of the offer. From a capital markets development perspective, Your Excellency, KPC, which is now PLC, as a newly listed corporate at the Nairobi Securities Exchange, provides institutional investors, both local and foreign, such as mutual funds, pension funds, and insurance companies, with an additional instrument to diversify their assets, thus increasing the potential for significant inflows of portfolio investment. The eventual listing of KPC at the Nairobi Securities Exchange shall increase institutional investors' desired stock of assets in the exchange, and this will end up with an increase in the flows of foreign capital. Your Excellency, from the IPO performance outcome, KPC transitions not just that of being a listed corporate, but will now be properly positioned as a regional company, allowing it to play a significant geopolitical role in East Africa's petroleum sector, primarily through its pipelines infrastructure and strategic location. KPC, from this divestiture, shall acquire the much-needed flexibility to access capital for expanding its pipeline capacity, improving storage facilities, and developing its oil refinery to cater to increased demand and regional needs. In conclusion, Your Excellency, allow me to appreciate all the stakeholders who contributed to this landmark success. I might not be able to mention all those who are involved, but allow me to recognize the following key stakeholders. One, I want to first recognize that the National Assembly played a significant and key role in passing the relevant, starting with session of ESPA and passing the relevant laws that allowed us to progress this IPO. Two, all the investors for their trust and confidence in the IPO amidst the many prophets of doom. Number three is the government of Uganda for accepting our invitation to invest in KPC, allowing the company to be a proper regional company. Number four is the board and management of the Privatization Authority, led by the chairman, Faisal Abbas, and the board in its entirety, and also the acting managing director, Dr. General Somondi, for its focused leadership during the transaction. I would also want to recognize the board and the management of Kenya Pipeline Company, led by the chair of the board, Madam Faith Boynet, and Joe Sang, for their cordial support towards the success of the transaction. I will not forget the Capital Markets Authority and the Nairobi Securities Exchange for their rigorous regulatory oversight that ensure the integrity of this process. Second last is the transaction advisory team led by the lead transaction advisors. And I want to mention Faida Investment Bank, the legal advisors, that is Triple OK Law Advocates and GA Advocates, the reporting accountants, PricewaterhouseCoopers, the data processing agent and share registrar, Image Registrars, the joint sponsoring stockbrokers led by Diane Blair Investment Bank and Francis Drummond and Company Limited, the advertising agency Belva Digital, the PR agency Apex Portal Novel, and the receiving banks, that is the Cooperative Bank of Kenya, KCB Bank, and Stanbic Bank, for their technical expertise in structuring and executing this complex transaction. Finally, to all the stock brokers, investment banks, and agents across the country who took this message to every corner of the Republic of Kenya. And allow me, Your Excellency, also to thank my team at the National Treasury, and we have my team here. Could you kindly rise up, led by the two principal secretaries, Chris Kipto, National Treasury, and Cyril Odede, who is in charge of public investment and asset management, and of course, Lawrence Kibet, who has actually done a lot of donkey work, actually, so to speak. And Lawrence, you'll forgive me for putting a lot of pressure on you. But you can see the results. Everyone is happy. Your Excellency, I will end there and kindly rise up and put your hands together as we welcome His Excellency the President to address us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please, let's take our seats. Asante sana. I have literally made my statement, but let me say this. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, today marks the 4th time that I have come to ring the bell here at the Nairobi Securities Exchange. And this occasion comes 3 years and 4 months since I first came here to launch the enhanced Nairobi Securities Exchange marketplace on the 7th of October 2022. On that day, I promised that the government would be bringing the Kenya Pipeline Company to the stock exchange. It may have taken longer than I had planned, but today that moment is finally here. Ladies and gentlemen, the Kenya Pipeline Company IPO is the first privatization listing in nearly 2 decades at this bourse. The previous one being Safaricom, which was listed in June 2008. But there is a deeper significance to today's listing. If you ask many Kenyans today, few can point to a specific national asset or project that has been built using proceeds from the sale of government stocks in companies such as KCB in 1988, Kenya Airways in 1996, KenGen in 2006, or Safaricom in 2008. While those transactions helped deepen our capital markets and broaden ownership, as well as future privatization, will provide capital to the National Infrastructure Fund, which I signed into law yesterday on Monday, February 9th, 2026. This is momentous because it marks a strategic shift in how Kenya finances development, moving away from a framework in which infrastructure is primarily financed by debt or taxes, to which infrastructure becomes an inevitable asset capable of attracting both domestic and international long-term capital. Ladies and gentlemen, some have suggested that rather than sell these public assets, we should keep leveraging on the dividends they generate. Others argue that if we must pursue privatization, then the funds raised should be used primarily to reduce public debt. While these views are legitimate, they do not answer, the fundamental question before us. How do we deploy our public assets in a way that delivers the greatest and most enduring value for the people of Kenya, both today and for the generations that will come after us? Allow me to demonstrate how the approach we are adopting enables us not only to finance critical infrastructure, but also manage our national debt more responsibly. First, without the proceeds of privatization, we would be faced with 2 difficult choices: either to slow down investment in critical infrastructure or to continue financing commercially viable projects through additional government borrowing. Neither option serves our long-term interests, and both are suboptimal and ultimately counterproductive. Let us assume, as I said earlier, that we borrowed an amount equivalent to the proceeds of the IPO at, say, 12.5% interest rate. we would pay an annual interest of 13.5 billion every year, which is nearly 4 times the 3 or 4 billion dividend that the 65% Kenya Pipeline government shareholding would have continued earning the exchequer. In other words, while the annual dividends provide a steady stream of revenue, they are far too modest to finance the transformative projects our country so seriously requires. Additionally, our goal is to leverage every shilling that we put in the National Infrastructure Fund at least between 10 and 12 times. In other words, the 106 billion from the Kenya Pipeline IPO will enable us to finance up to 1.2 trillion infrastructure in one cycle. This, for instance, is the capital we need to do many things in Kenya, as I have said. This 106 billion that we have raised from this IPO actually guarantees us access to 1.2 trillion resources that will help turn around a lot of infrastructure programs that are in our books. Ladies and gentlemen, as we rely more on capital markets to finance our infrastructure, the NSC will be a critical partner. Indeed, I was here 2 years ago to launch the trading of the 3 billion Sukuk bond, a first in Kenya, for the military housing project under our affordable housing program. And I opened the houses the other week just to demonstrate to you that it works. Many military people now have decent homes. In June 2025, I came back to launch the trading of the 44 billion Talanta Stadium infrastructure bond. In the course of this year, we will be bringing to the market the Road Maintenance Levy Fund, securitization bond, that have enabled us to solve the pending bills crisis that had settled road projects, that has stalled road projects everywhere in Kenya. That Roads Maintenance Levy Fund has raised for us 175 billion. And we will be bringing it here just to finalize so that people can trade as well. Put together, these transactions add up to a total of 335 billion of budget infrastructure financing. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, today's listing is a powerful signal of the growing strength, confidence, and maturity of our economy. It further represents the continuation of the economic reforms we have undertaken to stabilize our economy and restore fiscal discipline. Over the past few years, we have deliberately worked to bring down inflation, stabilize our currency, moderate interest rates, and sustain economic growth. I am particularly encouraged by several milestones achieved through this IPO. This has been Kenya's first fully electronic public offering, with all applications submitted digitally, making it a truly paperless and modern IPO. It attracted more than 70,000 ordinary Kenyan investors, achieving one of its most important objectives: broadening ownership and giving more citizens the opportunity to participate directly in the growth of our national enterprises. Equally significant is the participation of the government of Uganda and the government of Rwanda, and we want to thank them immensely for showing confidence in our country. This now makes Kenya Pipeline a strategic national enterprise and a regional one at that, and reflects the deepening economic integration within the East African community. This transaction was also the first government-led IPO undertaken under the new legal framework established by the Privatization Act which I signed into law last year. The process has been conducted with full cabinet and parliamentary oversight, public participation, and strict compliance with capital markets, sectoral, and competition regulations. In doing so, we have strengthened transparency, accountability, and public confidence in the management and strategic divestiture of government assets. There is no dark corner anymore. There is no shadows in this transaction. Cabinet is involved, Parliament is involved, public participation is undertaken, and it is on the sound footing of law. It's no longer something in some policy. It is anchored firmly in law. This is indeed a very significant moment for our country. With this listing, we are taking charge of our own economic destiny and laying a firm foundation for accelerated national transformation. We are demonstrating that Kenya has the confidence. We also have the institutions and the capital markets to mobilize its own resources and invest boldly into the future. By unlocking the value of our national assets and directing it towards transformative infrastructure, we are building a stronger, more resilient economy, one driven by our own ingenuity, our own enterprise, and our own determination to secure prosperity for our generation and the generations to come. I am very confident about the future of not just the Nairobi Securities Exchange, but the future of our economy and the future of our country. Together, we can make it happen. Thank you very much. I wish you the very best. Have a good day.
One, two. So let's take our seats kindly. We'll now progress to the climax of this particular session, which is the bell ringing. And with His Excellency there, allow me to invite the CSs present, Principal Secretaries present, NSC Chair and CEO, Chair CMA, August, Chair KPC, Honorable Ruth Nkabirwa, Irene Pauline, PS Petroleum from Uganda, Mr. Lawrence Kibet, and Faisal Abbas, Chair Privatization Authority, to join His Excellency on stage for the bell ringing. So let's have the bell brought, and we shall then count down to the ringing, which is now the official part where we have the listing done. So let's have His Excellency, CEO Kenya Pipeline as well can join. Eunuch. The stage is becoming smaller, but there is space for the lady. All right, so Your Excellency, at the count of 3, we shall then ring the bell, and that has the trading begin. So Your Excellency, in 3, 2, 1, Makofi. Wonderful, wonderful. So, thank you. So we'll just have a photo opportunity. We have that photo, if we can kindly just have that one. Then we'll have that followed by KPC board. So if we can exit and just leave His Excellency, the CSs and the PSs, let's have the KPC board kindly as a second frame. Cabinet secretaries would have remained. You can, CSs, you can remain, please. And the last frame after that, the board can exit, is the Privatization Authority Board. Privatization Authority Board, if you can make way to the stage, after which we shall then conclude with our closing prayer, which is our national anthem. We're just waiting for the privatization board as our last frame. As we mark this momentous day, 17 years after the last major listing here at the NSC, which must be also a very proud moment for the NSC chair, as he makes progress to a different assignment. Thank you. We'll then all exit except His Excellency the President. Let's exit the stage except His Excellency the President. Let's be all upstanding as we now wind up with the national anthem. So let's be all upstanding for our closing prayer, which is our national anthem. We'll then just maintain our